Welcome to the Franklin Method Fellowship. I'm your co-host Solange Ross, and I'm joined by my colleague Deborah Chassie. We are physical therapists specializing in the pelvic floor. In this podcast, we share our passion for the Franklin Method, an evidence-based therapeutic approach using mental imagery, movement, and awareness to improve posture, the way you move and feel, and overall well-being. We integrate the Franklin Method into functional everyday movements, all forms of exercise, and our physical therapy practices. We also share a love for talking about the pelvic floor. We hope to inspire you to move better and feel better in your body. Always check with your doctor before beginning an exercise program. This podcast is not intended to be used as medical advice. Let's grab your Franklin Method balls and bands. Enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. We are back with episode 9 of the Franklin Method Fellowship, and I'm here with my colleague, Deborah Chassie, and my name is Solange Ross, and we're hanging out with our spines again today. And in this episode 9, we are continuing with part 2, where we're going to look at the facet joints, and in particular, the facet joints in the thoracic spine. And really, we're going to get a good anatomical image today of how movement occurs in this area of the spine. So I thought we would begin with just our takeaways from last week. So what did you notice after part 1?
Well, I'm really enjoying the thinking about the facets and working with them. Because we really have to consider where the movement is coming from. And it's not coming from our spinous process, the bump that we feel, but it's coming from the facets. And so as we move, everything that we're doing, it's so nice. We could pick whatever it is we'd love to do and think about our facets as we're doing it. And as you all know by now, I do love to swim. So this week I was able to bring it into my swimming experience, which was so nice. And so we're going to be talking today about the different orientations of the facets as we're moving in different positions. For example, whether we're flexing or rotating or side bending. And when I'm swimming, for example, when I was doing a crawl, right, I'm bringing my arm over. So what's happening with the facet as I'm bringing my arm over, right? So it's sliding up on the side that I'm bringing my arm over. The other side is sliding down.
Ooh, well, I can't wait for us to give that experience for everyone here. And believe it or not, do you know that with all the swimming that I've done, I have never used the facets in imagery with swimming? I can't believe that. So when as you're telling me about this, I'm so excited to bring that in. And then part of me is thinking, why didn't you use the facets?
Well, the only reason that I hadn't done it before this week, but last week we covered the facets, and so it was fresh on my mind. And I really like to practice what we've talked about. And then it's nice too to have an experience, but why not embody that, bring it into all of my experiences that I do. So, same with the spine dance, right? As I did the spine dance, it was so nice to imagine the facets.
Wow.
And what they're doing. Yeah, how about you?
So
what came across your mind?
Yeah, so my daughter got her braces yesterday. So it's a big milestone.
Yeah.
So she was a little bit sore and tired from the whole ordeal. So she's 10 now. So she said, at the end of the night, can you hold me? Can you carry me? And I was like, okay, here we go. 50,
right, yeah.
50
How often
pounds.
do you do that?
So, I'm so happy that I had the image of just this stable pyramid and the tripod. So as I was carrying her, I was imagining this big, broad pyramid inside my body. And I was also thinking of the pyramid, like each leg was a pyramid, but then I also had this long tail behind me. So that was
Mm,
like where the triangle base was. So my legs and this long dinosaur tail or kangaroo tail extending
yeah.
behind me. And I felt so stable and strong. And then I was walking with her and I was like, this is great. You know,
Mm,
I'm solid, stable, but I felt this strength and flexible at the
yeah.
same time.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I had another experience too. So my granddaughters came over for a swim. And it was a cold day. It was raining and they still wanted to swim. So I'm thinking like, I don't really want to get in the water. But anyway, I did anything to be with my grandchildren and
Yeah.
enjoy time with them. So we were doing some different things with swimming. They're 7 and 4 and doing some different things. But also one thing that I did with them is I'd have them facing outward in front of me. So holding them up sort of, and then just swinging them like this, cradling,
Mm.
swinging. And they just would let themselves go because it's kind of like being on a hammock or something where you're just so relaxed and flexible and you're letting everything move.
I
And
love that.
feeling it in my own body too.
We
Yeah.
have this beautiful image in Franklin method of just the spine relaxing and floating in water. So that just, as you're describing it to me, it just brought up that image. I can just imagine lying on my back and just being
Yeah.
supported by the water. So each vertebra can just relax and be
Yeah.
supported.
And it's so good for the nervous system too, right? We
So good
talked
for the
about
nervous
the
system.
spinal cord going from the tailbone up to the cranium. Well, that's not exactly the picture, but anyway, you get the point. And and so just how that is free flowing in the spinal cord, that move
Yes.
very
If
real.
each segment can be relaxed and balanced, then we can have free flowing communication in between that channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So that was nice. And I love your example of the pyramid and creating stability and strength. I thought that was pretty amazing. And especially using your legs as another part of the pyramid and tailbone as part of the pyramid.
Yeah, and I think we have a video to show everyone, right?
Yeah.
So let's share this video from this
Okay.
is when you were in the outback, right?
Yeah. This was taken in Australia, in Currumbin, Australia, at least that region, uh, which is part of the Gold Coast. Most people would know it by that. The interesting thing is if you watch the kangaroo as it moves forward, it uses its tail to help propel it forward. And it's
Mm.
just so amazing how it does that. And I started thinking about the tripod when I was watching. It's like, wow, they're using their tail. What if we do that? What if we imagine that we have a tail like a kangaroo as we walk? We should try that.
Yeah. Well, let's stand up and have an experience with that. Mm. So I'll stop the share here.
Use a little something to imagine that I have a tail and then just walking. And I believe what they do is it's kind of like they're using their tail to move forward. And it's just so graceful the way they do it. If we just picture having a tail that supports us as we're walking.
I just
My
had
feels, go ahead.
I just had this image, and it's like I'm walking and sort of I have this big train that's like following behind me. It's like the tail is this big train, and it really feels cool. It's like my momentum is going forward, but then there's something counterbalancing behind me.
Yeah,
That was cool.
yeah. I like the way my abdomen feels as I'm doing it.
The idea of the tail also, I came back to standing, just gives me a lot of space in my spine as a whole. Like I
Mm,
really feel like I get some length.
yeah.
It's
And my
somehow,
neck is relaxed too.
yeah, it's somehow stretching me out.
Yeah. Probably why I'm feeling that in my neck. Just feeling that tensioning.
Mm,
Yeah. It's easier on my spine to have that tail. Hmm.
yes. So why don't we begin with a little bit of tapping and movement of our spine, if you want to lead us through that, Deborah?
Yeah. So I have this nice long brush. And if you have your balls, you could use your balls. And I think you have your balls, right?
Yeah.
And I can I can somewhat reach, right? So you could tap along there. I'm going to use my brush because
Mm.
it's easier for me. And so just go ahead and tap along your spine. And you can do some movements as you're tapping. So right now I'm getting my neck, tapping the neck and the lower part of my spine. And you can do whatever movement feels right. So long as you're doing flexion and extension. And I'm just kind of doing this sway. It's similar to what I was doing in the pool.
I just started adding some nice side bending.
Side bending is good. Yeah. And rotation. Get a little rotation in there.
And what I always love
And it's
doing too
sacrum
is just
too.
sacrum and then just tapping with both balls along either side of the spine.
Yeah. Even if we get the front, it's telling our body that we're sending a vibration to our spine.
Mm.
So if you can't reach the back, or if it's too awkward, you can always tap in the front.
Or even if at any point your arms get tired of tapping.
Yeah,
Mm.
I love this free flowing movement.
And of course, we're breathing as we're tapping.
And I love the feeling of tapping the head and the tailbone with
Mm.
some movement. I remember the first time I did this, my dura felt so relaxed.
Mm.
So in case anybody doesn't know what the dura is, it's the thick fascia that goes around the spinal cord. And very important to have that relaxed and flexible.
And very important to do spinal movements too, because that dura goes all the way down the spinal cord and connects to our tailbone. So we want to make sure that we're moving
Yeah,
our whole spine in a full range of motion so we get nice flexibility in that dura. Because just like any other connective tissue,
yeah,
it can get adhesions in it.
yeah, that's a great point. That makes me think about, if it's going all the way down to our sacrum and our tailbone, what if it was going down to the center of the earth?
Mm.
We had that connection.
I just took the balls for a moment and put them under my armpits. I just
Nice.
love doing this.
Why are you doing that?
Well, after I tapped my spine, then I was thinking, let me just really feel that support of my spine, that support of my spine and
Mm,
my shoulders kind of draping and relaxed and supported by the spine. And when we let our shoulders relax over the balls and just melt, or if we think the balls as these balloons in our armpits, it really helps with that sense of support from the spine. And we know that
I love
you
that.
love
I love the way it
the
feels.
balls in the armpit, right? Because we also have our lymph nodes there, right? So it's great for our lymph nodes.
Yeah. Can you see the type of ball that I'm using?
Hmm.
I like the way this one fits in the armpit
Nice.
for me. Yeah.
And what I notice too, sometimes when I give people this exercise, the balls can fall out or they can grip them too hard. And you really just want to imagine that your shoulders are relaxed and kind of melty over it. And if you do feel like they're slipping out, maybe just give a gentle pressure down and back onto the balls. And as you give that pressure down and back,
Now,
then
that's a great idea.
feel the balls also supporting you, like this idea of this buoyancy lifting you up with your gentle down and back pressure.
Yeah.
One one
That
other
feels
thing,
great. I love that.
doesn't it? One other thing that I love about the balls is that it helps with breathing. And if you just take a breath in here, you can notice that the ribs are pressing into the balls. You can imagine the lungs expanding into the ribs, expanding into the balls. And
Mm.
I don't know if you can even feel like a little bit of what feels like the ball is kind of externally rotating. So it's not just fixed in the same spot. As your rib cage moves when you breathe, it's going to shift and move the ball.
And just a few minutes ago, you mentioned something about the lymph nodes. And so as I'm doing that, and I have this external pressure going outward as I'm breathing, then that's giving a nice light type of pressure into the lymph nodes. It's the
Mm.
perfect amount for stimulation.
Say that again. What was the word that you said?
And as we're breathing in and we're feeling the external pressure coming from our ribs, it's putting pressure into the axilla, the armpit, where it just gives a nice bit of stimulation to the lymph
Mm.
nodes to stimulate emptying of the lymph nodes and
Mm.
moving lymph so that it can suck up more fluid.
I love that. So let's take the balls away and then we'll just check in and notice our spine. And we can notice our posture, levels of tension, notice the foundation in your feet, the position of your head, your breathing. Really make sure that you're not commenting on all of these things, but just noticing.
What's particularly standing out in my mind
What?
as we're doing that is my sacrum. My
Oh,
sacrum just felt so supported. My spine felt lengthened. And
oh,
here we just did a few movements and just to notice the difference. My feet position felt different. And I noticed that my feet were actually closer together, not wide apart. So that meant I had a better support.
mm.
What did you notice?
I was noticing just this gentle postural sway. So I was just going with the sway.
Mm.
And then I felt this beautiful sensation in my heart. And then sort of the shape was kind of as if I was drawing a heart because we had just had the balls underneath the armpits. So I felt this space.
Oh, uh-huh.
So I felt like there was this big heart, like the armpits were sort of the curves of the heart. And then the tip of the heart
Yeah.
was like my tail. So I was feeling this beautiful
Oh,
heart
awesome.
shape.
I love
And
that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was just this nice, it felt very gentle, like a gentle support.
Mm.
Hmm.
As you're explaining that, and I'm sitting here in a chair, and I'm just imagining that on my own body and just feeling that support into my limbs. And then as I'm sitting and sitting on my sit bones, and then the sacrum is right there, and feeling that support, even in sitting. That's such a great example
Mm.
or analogy. And it feels easy to sit up,
Does.
sit tall without slouching. Mm.
I also feel like I have a good head position. Like I feel like I'm, my head isn't forward. I'm not overly pulling it back. It feels like nice and relaxed in the front of my neck and throat.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. Feel like I can just relax into my spine.
Yeah. Well, isn't that amazing that we can just relax into our spine and that if we have this nice embodiment of the spine and we do exercises that are good for the spine, we can have this feeling like, yeah, holding our body upright and sitting is relaxing because it's well supported and it's embodied.
Yeah. 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 Something that was pointed out to me, uh, a colleague of mine who's also a physical therapist, she said, when you walk like you're a model. Because when I'm walking, I'm not moving my thoracic spine very much.
Mm.
And so I started making an effort that when I would go out for a walk, that I would rotate my thoracic spine, not my arms, right? It's easy to you swing the arms and thinking you're getting enough rotation, but it really comes from the facets moving.
Mm.
And so at first it was awkward to do, but now it's getting more comfortable to create that movement.
Well, I can't wait to look at the facets a little bit more closely. And I have a similar story when we were in the level one training and we were learning the facet movement and doing the spine dance. Our teacher, Morton, he pointed out to me, he said, Solange, you're moving your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, part of me was like, I'm moving my shoulders. But then I was so happy that he pointed that out to me because then I was really able to focus on the movement coming from the spine and coming from the facets versus doing the shoulders and reaching, which does give you some spinal flexion, but it's not initiating it from the spine. And I was
Yeah.
so appreciative to be able to have that pointed out so that then I could change and improve the mobility. And this thoracic area is with technology and everyone on their phone, it's really an area that everyone can benefit from and having more mobility, more movement overall because really we're in these static postures. It's like when you read something and you just get lost. Like I know we've all had that experience where we're just lost in whatever we got sucked into on the phone for that minute. And then all of a sudden, like you come back and you're like, how long was I gone? You know,
Oh,
for
yeah.
for teenagers, like it could be a long time. For anyone,
Yeah.
it could be a long time.
Yeah.
So
And I'm glad that you mentioned that initiate movement because um, as I embodied this in my daily life, embodied the Franklin method, one thing that I keep doing over and over again is initiating movement from a certain area. So you actually focus on the area and initiate the movement oh, I'm doing the backstroke. And so I'm initiating movement from my lung or from my lung and my heart rotating and figurating, or the duodenum, or, just different. So there's so many possibilities where we could
Right.
initiate movement, but I think that's a really important word, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it really is. Once you know how to use imagery, really the possibilities become endless. And it's just so fun and playful.
Yeah.
And, I really enjoy us sharing how we use it during the week and how we integrate it into our physical therapy practice and how we have such a great time using it.
hmm Yeah. Even when I'm doing cat cow, so every morning I have this routine of different floor exercises on a yoga mat. One of them is cat cow, and then I go into downward dog, and then I go into another position. But my point is I put the balls under my knees, and so I don't want to totally recommend this right away. You got to get used to being on the balls, but I put the balls under my knees as I'm on all fours, and then I do cat cow. And so it really accentuates the movement of the spine, the thoracic spine. So I'm really getting good movement. And as I'm bringing my head forward, I'm imagining the tailbone coming down towards the
Mm.
floor. And then as I extend, I'm imagining a string lifting my head and my tailbone at the same time. So it's kind of like this. Yeah.
Mm. And we
Why don't
can't
we do
wait.
that movement instead?
Yeah.
And what were you going to say? We can't wait?
Yeah, we can't wait for you guys to practice on all fours, to practice in whatever positions that that you want to with this information that we're sharing with you. Yeah, so lead us through the exercise.
Right. So if we what we want to do is to be able to flex our head and our tailbone forward. So kind of like you're tucking your tailbone in. You want your knees and your hips to be relaxed. And then to extend and imagine a string pulling your head back and your tailbone back. So this would mimic the position of being on all fours. Yeah,
Hmm.
forward and back. It's kind of like the spine dance.
Yeah. So
This
everyone's homework is to try this on all
fluid that
fours
movement is.
to really get your spine
Mm-hmm.
movement nice
And
and
that's,
fluid.
I'm going to try something. Since I talked about being on the knees,
Hmm.
I think there is something to the reflexes on the knees. So I'm going to do some tapping just on my patella, not on the patella, but below the kneecap. And then try the same thing again.
Okay.
I feel more movement in my thoracic spine. You.
I think so. Hmm. I definitely feel like that did something to my base of support in a way.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It did something where I was like, oh, think I can more freely move. I want you guys all to play with
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
see what you come up with.
Yeah. And I do have to say, at first I had to adjust to balancing on my knees, on the balls. That
Yeah,
was the most challenging part. And once I learned that balance, then I was able to do it freely.
yeah.
You know where I
So,
get the idea from? Was Eric was, I don't know if it was a book that I read it in or one of his trainings, but he had us balancing on the balls on our hands. So while we
yes.
were on all fours, our hands were on the balls and we would do cat cow. And I thought, what if I do that on my knees and balance on my knees? And then I started doing that. I do it nearly every day.
Yeah, these are all such great ways to work on balance and dynamic movement, but certainly not a beginner exercise. So get the embodiment of what's going on with the spine first. And then if you're feeling a little bit adventurous one day, give it a try.
Yeah,
Great. So should we look at our facet joints again and look at the spine as a whole?
I think that's great.
So we're going to take a look at the facet joints. So in the back, we have our spinous processes, and we're looking up at the cervical spine. And then here we have our channel for the spinal cord. And you can see the nerves coming out. These are all of our peripheral nerves coming out. And just behind that channel, that's where we have our facet joints. And you can see up here, and I'm using the playing card, if I insert it in, that the facet joints of the cervical spine are at this 45-degree angle. So we have the channel for our spinal cord in front, and then here are our vertebral bodies and the discs for our cervical spine. Then if we move into our thoracic spine, we can see here, so we have our spinous processes. Here's our foramen, the spinal canal with the nerves coming out. And we can see that this angle where the facet joints is, which is behind the spinal canal, how that is at a little bit more of a vertical angle. And as we go through the thoracic spine, it becomes more and more vertical. And just to get a sense that we have our spinous processes, we have our facet joints, which here in the thoracic spine, they're angled more at like a 20-degree angle off the vertical, our spinal cord, and then our vertebral bodies with the discs where we have our weight bearing. And then if we come to our lumbar spine, so we can see that here's our facets, and then all of a sudden, that kind of changes here. It changes orientation. I can't, if I stick my card in, I have to stick it in this way. So it has kind of moved into this horizontal plane, but angled slightly. So I'm going to bring it real close for the lumbar spine. So you can see here, our facets, they've kind of changed orientation, and they're more of in what's a horizontal plane. Whereas here, if I'm going to put it in, it's going to be more vertical. Can you see that difference? Putting the card in there, and then here, I put it in. Bring it in here. So that difference in the angle of the facets influences the way that each segment of the spine moves. So we really want to get a sense of those angles when we're looking at the movement of our spine.
That was a great explanation. I really like that with the playing card to see the angle and how the cervical spine is more 45-degree versus the thoracic spine, how it's more vertical with maybe a 20 degrees. And then the lumbar spine, how it changes. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go from being in this plane to then if we point our fingers towards the computer screen and angle our hands in, that's the plane where each vertebra is stacking up on. And maybe we can even take a look at that. Yeah. I think this gives a good visual of that.
That you can see it really well there. Yeah. Isn't it interesting how you have one on top of the other?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like two nice flat surfaces over each other so that it allows for a nice gliding movement.
Yeah, and I do have each individual vertebra also here. So if we look specifically at our thoracic spine, so here are two thoracic vertebrae, our facet joint here at that 20-degree angle. When we bend our spine, we're going to get this sliding up and forward. And then when we extend, we're going to get this sliding back and down. So there's this nice slippery, slidey movement up and forward as we flex, and then back and down. And maybe I can
That's
even
so
show.
nice to see those two together.
And we can even look here. If I flex this here, we can maybe see that. If we pick a segment, maybe here,
Yeah.
back and down.
There we go.
I'm flexing the spine up and forward, back and down. Picking a segment here, up and forward, back and down. We can look at it from the profile.
And you can see how the vertebrae is moving. The top one is moving up when you flex forward, and then it comes back down. You can see that perfectly on there.
You can see that up and forward.
That's right.
Back and down. And we want to get that going in each segment of our spine, right? So we have these 12 thoracic vertebra, right? We want to get each one so that it's sliding up and forward in flexion and then back and down, and that we don't have segments that are blocked or stuck and not moving. And really, by imagining this movement and tuning into each individual segment in our body, we can work on improving that.
Absolutely. That was great. Thank you, Solange. I love your colored spine.
It's a great one, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I just love seeing how the facets slide forward. You know what it reminds me of is shingles on a roof.
Yes.
Right? They're sitting like this, but if it has movement to it.
Yeah. That's a great image, shingles on a roof. And I think everyone should just join us with this hand modeling just to get this sense of when we flex forward, that sliding up and forward on the bottom vertebra, and then back and down. And then in a moment, we'll take that into our body. I'll give you one other visual if we want to look at it with the cards. Up and forward, back and down. So we have these 12 thoracic vertebrae, and each segment, we want them all. So when we flex forward, we want each one going up and forward on top of the vertebra below, and then back and down as we extend.
And what if, as you're doing that, we're thinking T1 and just doing more of a mental stimulation memory, right? So T1, T2.
Should we help people find T1 in case they don't know where that is on their body?
That would be great. Why don't you do that, Solange?
So if we touch the back of our neck and we run the fingers down the spine, we'll come to a really prominent one. And the way we know whether we're on the cervical or the thoracic is when we nod our head forward, that spinous process that sticks out in the back, that will move. But when we're on T1, when we nod our head forward and we're just moving our head, it will stay still. So that's how you can find it. If it's a cervical vertebra, when you flex your neck forward, it's going to move. And just try that, like get on the cervical spine and nod your head forward and back, and you can feel those moving. And then if you come down low enough, and T1 is pretty prominent, it sticks out quite a bit. When you flex your head forward, it doesn't go with the movement. So that's how you know you're on it.
That's a great explanation.
So we can start with T1 and imagine T1 on T2. And I'm going to use my hands to model the top vertebra. So my hands are going to be T1 on top of T2. And what I'm going to do with my hands is I'm going to move them to get this sliding up and forward and then back and down. So I'm going to take my hands and move them up and forward and then back and down. So tuning into that spot where you just touch the spinous process. So move your mind's eye an inch and a half forward in space, and also more over to the sides where the facet joints are. Because if you look at it from the back, if you're touching the spinous process, that's not where the joints are. The joints are off to the side. They're off to the side and they're more inward. So you got to take your mind's eye a little bit to the sides of the spinous process and an inch and a half inward in space. And then we're going to now begin to flex the spine. So not only the neck, so begin to round your shoulders and imagine that T1 sliding up and forward and back and down. Up and forward and back and down. And maybe we can go to T2. So can you move your mind's eye lower to T2? Up and forward, back and down. And T3, up and forward, back and down. What also can be a nice exercise here, if you can take your hands on your thoracic spine, and I'll take both of mine together, just turn around here. So here I'm to the sides of the spinous processes on my thoracic spine. And as I flex forward with my fingers, I'm kind of doing a little dragging up and forward. And then as I extend, pushing back and down.
Oh, I love that.
Up and forward and back and down. And what I'm kind of doing is I have my middle finger pushing up and forward. And then as I go back and down, I'm bringing it back closer towards my index finger. And trying to do a segment lower. Up and forward. And back and down. Going through each segment of the spine. So maybe we want to stand up from here and do a little bit more of a roll down with our thoracic spine. So if we can imagine our facets, let's just think about them on that 20-degree angle. And then as we go down the thoracic spine, they become a little bit more vertical. Then we'll turn to the side. And so we'll drop the chin to our chest and begin to round the shoulders, sliding the facets up and forward, 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 getting all 12 vertebra to slide up and forward, and then get them back and down, 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 back and down. And let's try that again. So flexing forward, up and forward, up and forward, up and forward. Allow each segment up and forward, 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 up and forward. And then as you extend, back and down, 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 back and down. Now, a beautiful image that I love when we're doing this is when we flex forward, it's like we're opening the blinds and allowing light to shine into the vertebra. And then when we extend, it's like we're closing the blinds at each level. So do you think we can try that and just use that image of blinds opening? Right? We've all had a sense of letting that beautiful morning light come through the blinds and then closing the light.
I love your example of using the blinds, because that's one of my favorite things in the morning is to open my blinds. So let's do that.
Yeah, let's put that image into our body. So we're going to flex forward and let the beautiful morning light come through as you open the blinds. And then as you extend, close the blinds at each level. And you can continue to hand model if you want as you open the blinds. And can you let that morning light come in equally on both sides? Remember, because we have the facet joints, it's 2 joints on either side. Is that light shining in equally? Or is there some level that you're having difficulty getting the light to shine through? So can we try to figure out which level that is and get a little bit more light to come into our body?
What if we side bend a little bit when we find that? Jiggle it. Jiggle to open it up in that area. Yeah.
I like that idea. So if you find that whatever segment that is that you feel a little bit stuck at, give a little bit of side bend there, give a little wiggle to try to loosen it up. And we're going to look into what happens in side bending in our next exercise, so you'll really have an understanding of how that can allow more space and more light to come in to the joints. So let's just notice what that did, what kind of effect we had on our spine. I feel my tailbone is a pendulum.
And I'm noticing my pelvis being more like the pyramid or the base of support.
Yeah.
Very strong and supportive. Makes it easy to support my spine.
Yeah. And isn't that amazing, right? Because we were imagining in our thoracic spine, yet the first sensation that came to us both were these sensations in and around the pelvis.
Yeah.
So do you want to walk us through the side bending?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So I'm just going to pull out my spine here. And we're going to look at the thoracic spine. But when you side bend, can you see the opening of the facet right here? So this side is opening and creating more space, where the other side is closing. Here's the vertebrae. And here is the spinous process. And so for this spinous process, you have a facet below at that same level and one above. As you side bend, so I'm going to go ahead and create a side bending. Then the vertebrae above is opening up, and the vertebrae on the other side is closing. So there's more space, less space.
Yeah, exactly like what we did in flexion. So when we bend to the side, one side is opening up and flexing, and the other side is closing or extending.
Yeah. So it's kind of like this. I feel like driving a car, the wheel of a car, you're turning and you're opening it up, right? Creating more space. Or another one would be imagine a shark and it's opening its mouth, right? And so the facets are opening up and closing on the other side. And if you go the other way, opening side. What if we picked that vertebrae where we felt more restriction and bend from there and open that up on one side? So mine's right around T4.
Yeah. So I'm imagining like a big yawn opening on this side.
So a big yawn with a nice noise.
Ah.
And
Ah. And I like that too, because you know, when you yawn and you stretch, there's a little bit of movement involved in it, right?
Yeah.
So that's like going to the side. That's like that wiggling or trying to get space and opening in that facet that's a little bit restricted.
Yeah.
And we can also think about inside bending, how the blinds on one side of the spine would be opening and the blinds on the other side would be closing. So we can bend to the sides and we open, 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 and then we close, 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 close on the side we're bending to. And then when we come back up, it's going to reverse. So we're going to close, 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 and then begin to open, 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 open as we go bending into the opposite side. And then as we come back to the center, those are going to slide back and down, back and down, back and down, back and down, back and down. The other one's going up and forward, getting that nice opening, the light shining in as the facets open. The light comes in, the blinds open on one side, close on the other.
I love the light shining in.
Oh, it feels so good.
Yeah.
Well, it create what you were saying last time was like these glowing facets. So I'm imagining like the light coming in and just lighting them up, and maybe your facets are all different colors.
How about a facet with a happy smile when it opens up?
Yep.
Can you imagine like a little smiley face on one opening up?
It opens up. And I love that. The more that I can get that opening, I feel like I can get a deeper side bend on that side.
How about effortless lifting? There's no effort for it to open up. Something is lifting it. So we're not having to force it open. It's just lifting on its own.
That's right. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, this effortless lifting, this effortless opening up, because just like with breathing, the last thing that we want to do is anything that's forceful. We want it to just be nice and gentle, efficient movement using just the right amount.
I feel like even my organs are moving more relaxed.
I feel this really great sensation in my feet. So I feel nice and grounded.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm.
I can really feel where the big toe is and
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to the heel. I feel really supported in that angle of the plane. And it feels pretty symmetrical.
Great. So we have one more motion of the spine, right? We have our rotation.
Right. So rotation's really important too. Let's go ahead and rotate our spine and just swing freely. And what I want you to notice is which side do you think is opening up? And you rotate to the left. What is the right facet doing? Do you feel it opening up, creating more space? And the side that you rotated to, for me, my left side, that it's shortening, closing.
Yes, I can feel that.
And then if you rotate to the right, the opposite side, do you feel that opening in the facets on the left side? And then on the right side, the closing of the facets.
Mm.
And if you keep that image open, open, referring to the side that you're swinging towards. So in other words, I'm swinging towards my right and my left side is opening. Swinging towards the left, the right side is opening. Swinging towards the right, the left side is opening. Swinging to the left, the right side is opening. Now just let it flow free and just thinking open, 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 open. And then how about close on the opposite side? Close, close, close. Yeah. Because you've got opening and closing, opening and closing happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
One side opens, the other side closes. Isn't it like God opens one door and closes another?
Yeah. And we can really think about that too as like this coordinated dance, because especially when we're doing all kinds of activities, right? That's happening so quickly, right? So we can imagine our simultaneous opening and closing happening nice and coordinated and efficiently and in all segments of the thoracic spine.
You know what I'm thinking about? You mentioned the word dance. And have you ever danced with somebody and it was just the most free-flowing dance that you could ever imagine?
Well, well, not when I'm dancing with my husband. We have like a
No,
different thing in mind. So we're a little bit like fighting and like not always connecting in a partner dance,
yeah,
but like we like to do our own thing. But
right, right. So
but it's
I hear you on that one. So I was in France. This was 2017. And I was staying at this one place and they invited me to go to French country dancing. And they were playing instruments and there was going to be dancing there. And in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to a bar. And I'm like, I don't know that I really want to go. I'm going to feel self-conscious and, concerned about this and that and not speaking the language very well. So I decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and go.
yeah.
And it was the most amazing experience. I loved it. And so people are playing violins and different, instruments like accordions, and somebody's singing, and then somebody's leading the dances. Well, at the end, the person that I was staying with, he danced with me. And the way he danced with me, oh my goodness. Actually, I don't have videos of it, but he was just like swinging me around and around, and I was just letting it go and just moving with him. And so that's the beauty of it, right? When you're just like swinging, and as a female partner, you're letting them lead, right? So if you're letting them lead, then you're just going with it, and it was
Yes.
so free flowing. And so that's what it makes me think about is when we're rotating our spine, it's just that free flowing movement, and how you just let it go and move with it.
I'm so glad that you're saying that, let it go, move with it, because that's exactly what we need to let go of there's so much muscle tension that many people hold in the spine. So if you can imagine like just being led and being moving freely, that can let go of that gripping and unnecessary muscle tension.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's nice to hold on to a picture as we're saying these different things, that it brings you to a place in your mind where you experience something like that. And it's good to use that picture to create and support the movement that you're doing.
Mm. My spine kind of feels like it's floating right now.
Mm, yeah.
I was brought back to how you were describing with your grandchild in the water.
Oh,
But I was just imagining now that like I'm just upright, surrounded by water, and
mm,
that my spine is just floating in the water, and the facets are able to move freely. So they're moving with the current of the water. Almost, I guess, like I'm like this piece of seaweed that can kind of move in the ocean.
right. Have you ever been scuba diving?
I have not.
Oh, so when you're scuba diving, and if you get stuck in seaweed, you know what you're supposed to do?
What?
Let go.
Like,
Let go. If you fight it and you're trying to get out, then you create more tightening around you.
yeah.
But just stay relaxed, and then you'll just slip right out.
Right. It'll like, because it's moving too. So, like, however it got onto you, it will release itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I
Beautiful.
love that. What a great analogy.
Kind of thinking of that with our spine and the facets and the
Hmm.
spinal cord, being able to just move freely.
Yeah, and that our spine really is, if you think about it, in this watery environment. You know, we have our spinal cord and encased in this cerebrospinal fluid. So
Mhm.
yeah, we really, it's really a great metaphor for how the spine moves.
Yeah. If we do the spine dance, are you ready
Yeah,
for that?
yeah, let's do the spine dance.
Okay. So now, keeping in mind our facets and the movement of our facets as we do this would be so advantageous. So if we just flex forward, wow, and
Mm.
forward, I just feel so much more movement in my spine. And then head flex forward, pelvis tuck under, head back, pelvis back. And again, forward. Nice big arm movements. And forward, feel that flexion in the spine. And head forward, pelvis under, head back, pelvis back. And how about one more time? Forward and back. Oh, wow, the facets are moving so freely. Happy
Mm.
facets. I've got the smiley faces on my facets. And head forward, pelvis tucked under, head back, pelvis back. And just so that we can see the pelvis, when we do head forward. So go ahead and show the head forward, and then pelvis tucks under. And then head back, pelvis goes back. You see that okay? So pelvis gets tucked under like that, and then back. All right. I just wanted to make sure everybody saw that. Good. And then to the side. Oh, facets opening on one side, closing on the other. And to the side. And happy faces poking through the facets. And then happy faces on the other side, smiling back. And to the side, and then whoops, lift the head up. And to the side again, facets, and closing the facets in the neck. Good. And one more time. Good. That feels so good, having the facets open up. You want to do the next part?
All right, so we're going to move our arms. And when we do that, we can feel that the facets are closing on the side that we're rotating towards, and they're opening on the opposite side. And then shuffle your feet, get your chest to center in between your hands, then moves the arms again. So facets closing on the side we're rotating towards, opening on the opposite. Then shuffle your feet, your chest gets centered between the hands, and then come back to the center, closing on the side we're rotating towards, opening on the opposite side. And then we'll go to the right. So rotate the arms, feel the facets closing on the right, opening on the left, then shuffle the feet. Rotate the arms again. The facets close on the side we're rotating, opening on the opposite, then shuffle the feet, and then come back to the center. The facets close on the side we're rotating towards, opening on the opposite.
And one thing to notice too is that Solange, when you do it in 3 positions, and I have to do it in 4.
That's okay.
You're more flexible than I am.
I don't know. Maybe I was compensating in some way. Who knows? Maybe it was my shoulders. But that's okay. Whatever your range of motion is, if you're going 3 or if you're going 4, that's absolutely okay.
If I tried to go way back like that, well, actually, I think if I kept practicing, then I could. So 3 turns. Because what I'm trying to do too is imagining that I have a beam of light here. So as I rotate, I want to bring as much of that as possible towards my hands, and then finish it up by shuffling my feet.
Yeah.
To get that beam of light through my hands.
So we can do 4. I'm good with 4.
3 or 4, whatever a person needs.
And then our last one is our spiraling. So imagining that we're holding a ball or a platter and that we're not going to drop that ball or platter. And here we're just going to sense how when we do each side that sometimes the facets are opening, sometimes they're closing, sometimes they're flexing, extending. So as you spiral from side to side, just allow the light to come in, allow the light to close in certain areas, and really just allow the sensation of being led. Can you let your facets lead you?
Oh, I love that. Let the facet lead you.
Okay, let that dance partner, that imaginary dance partner that's totally in sync with you, let them lead you.
He likes my pink shirt.
Oh. That was great. And we can also finish up with some banding for the spine. Do you have your band?
I do. I've got the Franklin band. You can use another one if that's all right. Or if you don't have the Franklin band and would like to use a say a scarf or a yoga strap,
Yeah, or any TheraBand, if you have any type of TheraBand from physical therapy, like here's a red one that I have, like you could, this is in a loop, but you could untie that, but certainly a
Notice
scarf
what I
or,
did. Right, notice what I did with my hands. So I have the band around my back and my hands in front, and then I'm going to wrap it one time. There we go. Right. So we can do this one where we're pushing into our band with our back and then opening
hmm,
the front and opening the facets in the back and closing them as we extend
hmm.
and pushing as we open the facets and opening in the front. And something to keep in mind too is soften the knees and the hips so that you're really flexed and relaxed in your hips and knees as you push forward and then extend.
That's a great point. I'm glad that you're mentioning that because if our knees aren't soft, like if they're locked and our hips are locked, then we're not going to get that nice flexion and extension of our spine.
And I like the way you curl your arms when you come forward. That
Mm.
looks really nice. And then opening them up. It's almost like we're flying.
We're flying. And actually, the image that I was using was a butterfly. So,
Uh,
so my arms were like the wings of the butterfly, and my spine is the body of the butterfly. So I
I
was
love
thinking about this delicate body of the butterfly and the wings just opening and closing.
And look, my wings are flapping. They look down here.
But now I'm going to try on the image that now I'm the piece of seaweed floating in the ocean.
So I think if we're seaweed, then we want to just kind of be free flowing.
Hmm.
No struggle,
No struggle.
easy movement. Or imagine if we're in a difficult situation and we just let go and just let it happen.
Yes.
Things always work out, don't they?
Right. That idea that we're flexible, that we may have had something, we may, in our mind, we may want things to go a certain way, but there's this flexibility that if we let go, everything will be okay.
And not only that, but if we let go, it usually works out better than what we could have imagined,
That's right.
rather than trying to control anything.
Yeah. Right. Like this idea of control can really be the enemy of movement
Yeah.
instead of, we want stuff that can befriend our movement and that can optimize our movement. I love that, letting go.
So how about if we go to the side, so push our ribs into the band one way and then into the band the other way. So the side that we're pushing into, imagine those facets opening and the other side closing,
Mm.
and then pushing into the other side opening and the other side closing.
And I
Oh,
just want to show this to people because I noticed that the first time I did this, when I brought the band over here, I like moved my pelvis.
mhm.
So you want to make sure that you're moving your rib cage into the band as opposed to moving your pelvis. Can you see the difference? My
Yes.
ribs, my ribs, ribs, pelvis.
Good.
This one took me a long time when I learned this for the first time, because especially on one side of my body, like I have a tendency to be shifted in my rib cage.
Yeah.
So so my movement is not necessarily symmetrical because I'm already shifted slightly in a little place. So if you find that happening, don't fight with your body. Just let go. Let go. Think about the movement happening freely. Imagine those facets opening in the side you're moving into the band, closing on the opposite side. Mm. And my shoulders got tired there. So
Yes.
if your shoulders get tired from the banding, from keeping tension on it, feel free to just release the band for a moment, give them a shake. Mm.
Or do what you said with the balls. That really supports the posture. Mm. And maybe a little bit of swinging. And side bending.
Mm.
After using the bands, do that movement with the balls under the arms, under the
Yes.
armpits.
Mm.
I'm going to enjoy moving today,
So we can
moving my
do,
spine,
yeah.
looking forward to my experiences.
So we can do one final check-in just to notice our spine. Mm.
I feel like my ASIS, which is right here, people call this the hip bones. It's really not.
Mhm.
They're just feel it's being supported and lifting up all the way to my belly button.
Mm. I just feel these nice ripples. I feel like ripples moving through my body in different ways. Just ripples.
So interesting how each person's experience is going to be different depending on so many different things about that person, their past experiences, their current conditions.
Mm. Yeah, and things may come up for you as you move throughout your day, moving your spine, being aware of the movement in the facet joints, and just noticing what comes up.
What do you spend a lot of your time doing during the day that would make you think about your spine?
Well, I spend a lot of time walking. I walk everywhere in New York City. There's walking the kids to and from school, walking to after school activities, walking carrying groceries. So I'm really going to be thinking about going back to what you were saying in the beginning about walking and rotation so that my facets are moving while I'm walking. And it's not just my arms or my shoulders flinging.
Yeah, great.
How about you?
Yeah, I'm thinking about cooking. I cook a
Mm.
lot of my own food, and and that takes time, preparation, so
Yeah.
forth. And I've never thought about incorporating my facets into it. But today I'd like to think about that as I'm preparing food and
I'm
see
gonna
how it goes.
I'm gonna do the same because I spend a lot of time in the kitchen and I love cooking. So I'm gonna see how my facets can help me cook, and I'm certainly gonna use all of these images for the spine being stable and strong yet flexible, especially as I'm chopping stuff and prepping certain things.
Getting this and getting that. And right? And to allow the facets to guide us.
Yes,
And then also we're getting some sensory input with the smells. Don't you love the smells when you're cooking?
I do.
I hardly ever even taste because I do this and smell smell
My
the
my dad does that when he was staying with us. It's like he would come and whatever I was cooking and he was doing that, and I loved seeing him do that. I'm so happy you brought that up.
yeah. But so when I'm thinking of the sensory input, I'm thinking of the spinal cord in the brain,
Mm,
right? Because that's part of the cranial nerve is being able to smell.
mm.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
this was such a great practice today. I'm so appreciative of our practice together and sharing this with all of you. So, should we tell them about the topic for next week?
All right. So the topic next week is Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
And I have a lot to say about it, but we're only going to be able to cover a certain amount in one session. But maybe there'll be other sessions where we want to do more. But I
Mhm.
really want to say that what we've done so far, this is episode 9 that we've done. So everything that we've done is actually going to be supportive of Parkinson's disease because it's all about rhythm, rotation of the spine, and repetition.
Mm.
And there's so many aspects to it, but the breathing, everything we've done, the pelvis, all so important for people with Parkinson's disease. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that
So,
next week.
so we'll
Just
be sharing that with you and also some research that the Franklin method has done on Parkinson's as
mm,
well.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
there's so much info on it.
yeah. So we look forward to seeing you all next time and enjoy your healthy spines moving efficiently and freely and letting go. See you
Yes.
next
Thank you
time.
so much for joining us. And it was so great to work with you today, Solange. I enjoy it always.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we would greatly appreciate it if you would leave us a review. You can also become a patron of the podcast. Join our patron program to get access to movement practices from each episode, bonus episodes, and Q&As where we answer any questions you have about the practices. We look forward to practicing with you and continuing to share our passion. As we say in the Franklin method, better information leads to better navigation. Keep practicing, and we'll see you next time.